I was 26 when this happened. At the time, I worked as a junior accountant for a mid-sized logistics company, the kind of job where days blur together and nothing dramatic ever happens. I've always been the quiet type, introverted, routine-oriented, and probably too trusting. I lived alone in a small apartment on the edge of a residential neighborhood, about a 20-minute walk from my office. This took place in late October, a Thursday night. The air had that sharp, dry cold that comes right before winter settles in. I remember because I'd left my jacket at home that morning and regretted it all day. I usually drove to work, but my car was in the shop for a minor repair, so I'd been walking and using public transport all week. That night I stayed late to finish reconciling a report. Nothing unusual, just numbers, spreadsheets, and the low hum of fluorescent lights. By the time I left the office, it was a little after 9:30 p.m. The building was nearly empty, and the parking lot lights cast long shadows across the pavement. I remember feeling oddly calm, tired but calm. I put my headphones on, not playing music, just habit, and started my walk home. It was a route I'd taken dozens of times before. Quiet streets, familiar houses, nothing that had ever made me feel unsafe, at least not until that night. The first part of the walk was completely normal. I passed the closed bakery on the corner, the one that always smelled faintly of yeast even at night. A bus rolled by, empty except for the driver, its interior lights glowing like an aquarium. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked once and then stopped. I checked my phone while walking, responding to a text from my sister about weekend plans. I remember smiling at something she said, thinking about how good it would feel to sleep in on Saturday. My steps were steady, automatic. I knew every crack in the sidewalk by memory. About 10 minutes in, I stopped at a small convenience store to grab a bottle of water. The cashier barely looked up when I paid. There was a guy lingering near the fridge, scrolling on his phone. Nothing stood out. If you asked me then, I'd say the night felt uneventful, almost boring. When I left the store, I took the longer route home, the one that cut through a residential street instead of the main road. I preferred it because there was less traffic noise. The houses there were older, set back from the street, with tall hedges and long driveways. Most of the lights were off. A few porch lamps glowed dimly, casting warm circles onto the sidewalks. I adjusted my backpack strap and kept walking. My breath puffed slightly in the cold. I remember thinking how quiet everything was, like the whole neighborhood was holding its breath. That was when I first noticed footsteps behind me. At first, I didn't think much of it. Footsteps aren't unusual. People walk at night. Someone could live nearby, be walking their dog, coming home from work like me. I told myself that and kept going. But after a minute or so, I realized the footsteps were matching my pace. When I slowed down slightly, they slowed too. When I sped up, they followed. It wasn't perfectly synchronized, but close enough that it tugged at something in the back of my mind. I resisted the urge to look back. There's this unspoken rule when you walk alone at night. You don't want to seem paranoid. I told myself I was overthinking it. The sound of shoes on concrete can echo weirdly between houses. Still, my shoulders tightened. I casually glanced at a window reflection as I passed a parked car. The glass was dark, distorted, but I thought I saw a shape behind me. Tall, hood up maybe. I couldn't be sure. I turned onto the next street earlier than usual, pretending it was nothing. The footsteps turned too. That's when my heartbeat started to pick up. I pulled one ear cup off, suddenly very aware of how vulnerable it made me not to hear properly. The night seemed louder now, the rustle of leaves, the hum of distant traffic, my own breathing. I stopped abruptly and pretended to tie my shoe. The footsteps stopped. I crouched there, fingers frozen on the laces, waiting. Seconds stretched uncomfortably long. When I finally stood up and turned around, the sidewalk behind me was empty. No one. I felt stupid, embarrassed even. My face was warm despite the cold. I told myself I'd imagined the whole thing. Anxiety does that. Long day, late night. I straightened up, put my ear cup back on, and kept walking. I didn't notice right away when the footsteps started again. This time, they were closer. I could hear the scrape of rubber soles against the pavement, uneven, like someone trying not to make noise and failing. My chest tightened, and I felt a rush of heat under my skin. I crossed the street without looking. The footsteps crossed too. That was when it stopped feeling ambiguous. I reached into my pocket and wrapped my fingers around my phone. I didn't call anyone yet. I don't know why. Maybe part of me still didn't want to believe it. The street ahead was darker. One of the streetlights flickered weakly, throwing the sidewalk into alternating bands of light and shadow. The houses here were set even farther back, with tall trees lining the road. It felt like walking through a tunnel. I glanced back again, more deliberately this time. About 20 feet behind me was a man. He was tall and thin, wearing a dark hoodie pulled low over his face. His hands were in his pockets. When our eyes met, or at least when I thought they did, he stopped walking. We stood there like that for a moment, frozen on opposite ends of the sidewalk. Then he took a step forward. I started walking again, faster now, my heart hammering so hard it felt like it might choke me. My thoughts were scattered, jumping from one worst-case scenario to another. I rehearsed what I'd say if he spoke to me. I rehearsed running. I turned another corner, this one leading toward a small park I usually avoided at night. The path narrowed, lined with bushes and trees. I hated myself for taking it, but I didn't want to lead him straight to my apartment. The footsteps were right behind me now. And then he spoke. "Hey," he said, voice low and calm. Too calm. I stopped walking. My body felt heavy, like it didn't belong to me anymore. I turned slowly. He was closer than I expected, maybe 10 feet away. I could see part of his face now, pale skin, stubble on his jaw. His eyes were hard to read in the dim light. "Sorry," he said, raising one hand slightly, like the gesture itself was supposed to mean something. "Didn't mean to scare you." I didn't respond right away. My mouth was dry. "What do you want?" I finally asked. He shifted his weight, glanced past me down the path. "You dropped something back there," he said. "Thought I'd return it." I knew that was a lie immediately. I hadn't dropped anything. I hadn't even stopped long enough to drop something. "I didn't drop anything," I said, my voice shaking despite my effort to keep it steady. He smiled then, not wide, just enough. "You sure?" Something in my gut screamed at me to run. I took a step back. He mirrored it forward. "Don't," he said softly. "No need to make this weird." That was the moment it clicked. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't awkward coincidence. He'd chosen me. I turned and ran. I don't remember deciding to. My body just did it. I sprinted down the path, my shoes slipping on fallen leaves. I heard him shout something behind me, his footsteps pounding, fast and heavy now, no longer trying to hide. The park opened up ahead, a wide stretch of grass barely visible in the dark. I cut across it, lungs burning, heart screaming. I didn't look back. I just ran until I saw the glow of headlights from the street beyond. I ran straight into traffic, waving my arms, shouting. A car screeched to a halt. I stumbled to the curb and collapsed, gasping. When I finally looked back, the path was empty. He was gone. The driver, a middle-aged woman, kept asking if I was okay. I don't remember what I said. Someone called the police. They arrived quickly, took my statement, asked for a description. They searched the park with flashlights for maybe 15 minutes. They found nothing. One officer suggested maybe the guy had just been trying to talk to me. Another said I probably startled myself. They told me to be more aware of my surroundings and offered to drive me home. I didn't sleep that night. For weeks after, I changed my routine, took different routes, avoided walking alone at night, jumped at every sound behind me. I replayed his voice in my head over and over, trying to understand what he wanted. Nothing was stolen, nothing technically happened, and yet something had been taken from me. It's been 3 years now. I still don't walk with headphones on. I still glance at reflections in windows when I pass them at night. Sometimes when I'm alone on a quiet street, I think I hear footsteps matching mine, and every time I wonder if he's still out there, or if he ever stopped following me at all.